It is a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Cyndi Blalock. Thanks so much for being on my show today.
Hey, Howard, thanks so much for having me.
I do too many old grandpa people since I'm a grandpa, and it's young to get some fresh young dentists. You're what, 30 years old?
31,
30,
yes.
31 years old? Let me read
You
your
should never
bio.
ask a woman her age, Howard.
You're what?
I said you should never ask a woman her age,
What,
Howard.
do you want me to edit that out? Was that bad?
Oh, no, no,
Oh, okay.
I'm just
You're
kidding.
you're actually from Cape Girardeau. That's where Rush Limbaugh's from.
It is, yes.
Th-
We're proud of the Limbaugh family where we're from.
Are you proud of the Limbaugh family? Now, didn't he buy a baseball team, or was that in Florida, or?
It wasn't in Cape Girardeau, that's for sure.
Yeah. Um,
Uh-huh.
so let me read your bio. Originally from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, home of Rush Limbaugh. She says, I got my start in dentistry when I worked as a dental assistant for a pediatric office. I attended UMKC and graduated in 2011, and I graduated there in 87. I returned to my hometown to join a group practice with three other doctors that I'd known for many years. After 6 months, tensions were rising between the partners, and I was doing a lot of sitting around because two of the partners were pulling seniority over your big cases. So she found a job in public health in Jefferson City. That's the capital of Missouri, right?
You're right, it
And
is.
shortly after she left, one of the partners left the practice and the lawsuits flew. So she was glad she got out when she did. You had a 3-year, 30-mile no-compete clause in your contract and was unable to work near your hometown in Cape Girardeau. So you got a job in public health as an associate and as a locum tenens dentist for the next few years. After meeting your husband, you moved to St. Louis, where you bought your own practice in March of 2014. And your husband is a chiropractor and also a business owner. So, Dan, thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you.
It's funny how you talk about the partners. What dentists don't realize is that, when you get married and you have children and you make love and you have holidays and you have all that stuff, it fails half the time. So then they go marry some damn dentist who's weirdo to begin with. Some guy who grew up in a library reading physics books, and there's no social glues of sex, children, family, holidays, and they don't realize that those fail far more than half the time. And
Mhm.
and the lawsuits flying, that they complain about their divorce and all that stuff and alimony. Well, how would you like to have a divorce with a dentist and the money's paid and all that stuff? I don't get partnership. And then on an org chart, imagine if you have humans always line up, Pope, bishop, priest, altar boy, or general, major, whatever. Imagine if there were two popes right now, or three, or I mean, how does so? Yeah, I could go on forever about that. I'm not a big fan of partnerships because I think every business needs an org chart, and they need to know where the buck stops. And when the buck stops at three gods, what do you do? The buck should stop with one person. That's what Harry S. Truman from Missouri had on his desk. It says the buck stops here, and he was the final
Mhm.
call. So tell us about your journey. What lessons have you learned along the way?
Gosh, Howard, I could write a book about all the lessons I've learned. Dentistry is an amazing profession, and dental schools prepare you to be the best dentist that you can be, but not so much for what the real world is like. And I see it in students that are graduating, students that have just graduated, that we have kind of this wide-eyed Bambi view of what dentistry is going to be, and we're going to do all these cases and we're going to help all these people, when in reality there's so many other parts of being a good dentist that sometimes you have to learn kind of the hard way. How to work with doctors, how to work with assistants, how to work with hygienists, how to balance different personalities in a dental office, and how to find your own way in dentistry.
So
So
on that note, you got out of school in 2011. It's now 2016. Do you think when you come out of dental school, you could have started your practice day one? I mean, if you're going to learn how to swim, do you think you can dive in the deep end? Doesn't matter if it's first day out fire. Or are you glad that you wait? How many years did you wait before you opened your own?
3 years.
3 years. And
Yeah,
so,
years.
what would your advice be? I think about 20% of the fans of the show are dental students. Do you think I graduated May 11th in 87, and I had my office open September 21st. Do you think that's are you glad you waited, or what do you what's your advice there?
Well, I think there's different personalities with different types of people. It's not for everybody. Dental practice ownership is not for everybody. I have a similar personality. I think that I kind of wish I would have started from square one, but I think a dental student really needs to evaluate themselves and look at themselves and see, am I ready to be a leader? Am I ready to be the guy that makes all the decisions? So I think it's not for everybody, but I think that if I would have, just knowing myself, if I would have started from the get-go, I think I would have done okay doing that
So,
instead of waiting 3 years.
if you're 31, are you a Generation Nexter or a millennial?
I really don't know.
Uh,
Um,
I think a millennial
I'm
is
not,
someone who came of age and got their car keys at the year of 2000. I think that's
yeah, that's not me.
what. Where
I don't
where were
think I'm
you
a
at 2000?
2000. I was in high school.
So you're a millennial then. So you're a
Am I?
yeah. So
Oh
so
man.
so I
Bummer,
always hear a
dude.
bunch of old male dentists like me telling me
Yeah.
what the young girls are thinking in dental school. So I'm gonna ask you because you're the real thing. Um, do the girls and a lot of corporate dentistry owners always repeat this, and I don't know if they repeat it because they want to believe it or it's true. They say, the girls in dental school, they're all gonna marry guys like you married a chiropractor. They're gonna marry dentists. They're gonna marry a man with a good job. And they don't want to own their own business. They all want to just have an 8 to 5 job. That's why Heartland's going to rule the world. And at 5 o'clock, they want to go be a soccer mom. You were in
Mhm.
dental school for 4 years with a lot of women. Was that the main thought or not really?
For some women, it was.
Percent wise, what some women?
Yeah.
What what
And,
what
and
percent?
oh gosh, I would say probably half of the women in my class
Thought that.
were excited about having a family and maybe working part-time. But a few of us, we are born business owners and born leaders, and that's, something that drives me is to be better at business and to do well. And it's funny, whenever when I was looking to purchase a practice of my own, one of the practice brokers in the area made an assumption that you shouldn't just make that assumption. He took me to a tiny practice with a retiring woman dentist who works 2 days a week, and he's like, this practice is going to be perfect for you so you can raise your family and not work so much. And I had to stop and just kind of blink a couple times because that's not my personality at all. I wasn't one of the women that just wants to work part time and that's it. And a lot of the women doctors in my area that are my colleagues are the same way. They have a family, but they're still working full time and they're running their business and they're running their practice. So it just kind of depends on the person and what they're expecting out of their career.
So you're a doctor who owns a dental office. Your husband's a doctor who owns a chiropractic office. Is that fun brainstorming that you each own your own business in healthcare?
It's been really nice because we get what each other is going through. On the days that I work, a full day of seeing patients and then have to stay later to do payroll or to do hiring, firing, that sort of thing, and I have a really long day, he understands it. And likewise, if he has a really long day, I understand it as well. And we kind of have this power team. We call it Team Blalock, where we just get together and we talk about different marketing ideas and different patient experience things. And it's really astonishing to see just what can come up. Even though we have two different backgrounds, two different professions, healthcare is still healthcare, and we both have jobs where insurance plays a big role in certain things that we do and ways to overcome that and still help the patient benefit from those sort of things.
So is your husband's revenue percent from insurance the same as dentistry? I mean, I'm not an expert in chiropractic.
Sure.
Is it as insurance driven as dentistry?
It can be, yeah, and as healthcare is changing, with the new affordable healthcare and that sort of thing, people's chiropractic benefits are changing, and so that's always a question of what I think I need this, but what does my insurance cover? That kind of thing. So he has the similar struggles, like if I say, hey, you need a crown, they say, okay, well, how much is that going to be? What does my insurance cover? That's always, for some people, that's always the next question.
Well, I wish I would have married a chiropractor. I do because I hung my 10-pound bowling ball bald head over looking direct vision for so long. My neck is so
Hmm.
jacked. I just wish
Oh, I
if I
know.
could go back in time, the only thing would tell every dental student: use the damn mirror. You know, get loops, sit up straight. You know, drop a microscope. Don't look. And I am. You know, yesterday, I still catch myself doing it yesterday. It's like, I'm almost 29 years I've owned my dental office. I'm still curious George leaning my stupid bowling ball head over looking at that tooth. And but crazy, crazy. So tell us more lessons you've learned on your journey. What could you impart?
Well, I think that it's important for people to know that, you know, something that I struggled with initially when I first got out of school is I shadowed and I worked in an office that was established, that they'd been there for 30 years, that sort of thing. And so when you first get out of school, you're not going to have the dream practice that you worked in or the dream practice that you shadowed in. You know, Being open to kind of paving your own way is okay. Just because your friends are doing one thing doesn't mean, if your heart is going another direction, that doesn't mean you shouldn't follow your heart. And, being a locum tenens dentist, for a couple years there where I traveled and worked in different offices, that's something that when I would talk to my classmates, they're like, wait, what are you doing? You you're going and filling in different offices and you're there for 6 weeks and what, why? And so, there's a lot of different options out there and you just have to find what's a good fit for you.
I want to ask you another female male question.
Hmm.
Some people, you know, in my career, the big boom was cosmetic dentistry, and it was an
Hmm.
explosion. The whole America decided they didn't want silver fillings and gold fillings; they wanted tooth colored, bleaching, bonding veneers, and that was a big boom. And now all those baby boomers are going into senior citizen, and that's why dental implants are exploding. And so
Hmm.
the middle of the market, baby boomers, is now shrinking, and the fastest are on both ends. And one end on the right, the old people, it's all implants. And that's why CBCTs and surgical place implants are using. But on the other end, Obamacare just threw 9 million more children into the dental insurance. And the generation nexters babies were millennials. In 2007, they had an echo boom of 4.2 million children born in the United States. And there's only one, we only graduate 325 pediatric dentists a year, so it's less than one pediatric dentist per million. But everybody's wondering this specific question about you being a woman. They're saying that, my generation of male dentists, we'd rather get a paper out than treat a 4-year-old. And a lot of them are saying, you know what, you're not going to need that many pediatric dentists because they think the women dentists, which is now half the class, won't have the problem treating children as the male dentists have. Is that true or false?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question.
You're the first
Um,
person on my podcast that ever said that.
really?
That I had a really good question. No one's ever make a footnote of that, Ryan.
Make a note. We're gonna have to cut that splice out, cut out that video clip. Um, it is automatically assumed that because I'm a female that I love treating children. And every position that I've had since I graduated, I was brought in, the first associateship that I have, I was brought in to grow the pediatric part of the practice. And I got my start in pediatric dentistry. I was a pediatric assistant and I loved it. Is that what I want to do exclusively? Not exclusively. And that's a great part about being a general dentist is that you can choose, what you like to do and do more of it. Um, Pediatric dentistry is a big part of my practice. We have special events that are kind of exclusive to my practice, where we are, trying to attract children and help them to make the dental experience not as a scary one as maybe their parents had lived through previously. Um, but here again, I think it depends on the person. I think that just stereotypically saying you're a lady, so you're going to like working with the kids. I think that is. I don't think that's a fair assumption to make. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I have a friend and she does not like seeing kids. She would rather get a paper out than have to work on a 4-year-old. And so there are, other people in my class that's all they want to do is see children, but they don't want to get their, go back to get their pediatric residency in.
If I
So,
had the choice to be a pediatric dentist or go to hell, I would definitely just take off all my clothes and go to hell. I would set that one out. Hey, I want to go back to on your journey. What
mhm.
advice would you let's start with associates. What advice would you like give an associate? Because I think most of the emails and the posts on Dental Town I see are frightening. They'll say usually they'll say something like, "Well, this guy's offering 35% and he'll pay the lab bill." And this guy's offering, and it's like, dude, it's not a
Mhm.
quantitative issue. There's more to it than your pay. I mean, pay is important, but
Mhm.
what advice? So you're coming out of school. You're interviewing three different people that want to hire you for an associate. What should they be looking for or thinking about associateships?
I think you're right. Even though everybody's coming out of school with more student loan debt than ever before, um, it is really easy to get bogged down with compensation. But there are situations where, I've had an associate work in my office, and I tried to help guide her looking at the different offers, kind of like what's going on in Dental Town, and if someone's offering you the sun and the moon and the stars and they're a private practitioner and they're working 2 days a week, run. If they're offering, you know, 45% compensation, no lab fee, nights and weekends off, all these things, I would be very skeptical. Um, Try to look at the big picture. It's not just about compensation. Um, as a business owner myself, I have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into my practice. And it's really difficult when I hear other dentists talking about associateship offers that they have, for me to expect that they're just going to be able to walk in and and earn percentages like that. So I think that if you look at the big picture and see, okay, are you personally willing to help grow the practice? That's something that is expected, I think, of associates. Every associateship that I've had, it's been expected that I go out and help build the practice. Because, like I said, with all the blood, sweat, and tears that a business owner puts into their practice, it's really difficult to just hand the reins over to another doctor. Even though they don't have the responsibilities of doing payroll and doing all those things. I think it's important for associates to have a marketing plan and find out what can be done to help grow that associate's practice within the practice that they're working for. So there's got to be a means to an end as far as what you're willing to do. And sorry, I got a cat scratching my chair.
Oh, how many cats? You have one or two or how many?
Oh, we have one cat and we have two dogs.
I have
And
two kitties. What Tigger and Mamimi. What's your cat's name?
Macy, she might hop up here. I don't know.
And
So sorry if
I'm
she does.
very mad at my cats. I thought about scolding them yesterday because I stepped on a scorpion yesterday right before I went to work. So
Oh
yes, I
my
had to
God.
work with a left foot burning on fire. And there's my two lazy cats. They only had one job, eat the scorpions, and they usually do. Um, but back to that associate, I'm going to ask this specifically.
Yeah.
So now that you own your own, because people will talk about compensation, and I don't even get it because say one doctor's paying you 35% and one doctor's paying you 25%. I'd rather look at the net income. I mean, that if the
Sure.
other associates there at 25% taking home 200 and you're going to go make 40% and take home 100, it's the net.
Mhm.
But the skill set, they think about pay, but when as you own your own business, what keeps you up at night? What is the things you didn't learn in dental school that maybe if you should take an associate, you say, I want to work for this lady because, I heard Cyndi Blalock say I should really learn about what are the leadership or marketing or what other things besides compensation should they be learning in associate that you wish you knew more about when you opened up your own business to prepare them for that?
I think associates need to understand numbers. I think they need to know, the difference between production and collection, because, production is kind of an arbitrary number without taking into account, the adjusted production where you're doing the write-offs for insurance and that sort of thing. There's a lot of contracts that say a percentage of production, percentage of collection. Well, they mean very different things. And so I think having a good basic understanding of business business principles like just your key performance indicators, production collection, new patients, that sort of thing. Having that good solid foundation is going to help them, because unfortunately not every practice owner is an honest practice owner. And as an associate, you need to be able to understand the numbers to where you can evaluate the reports and see if you're getting a fair shake. I've seen a lot of forums out there. Well, this is happening, so what do you think? What should I do? Do you think I'm getting screwed over? I think it's important for an associate to be able to know if and be able to evaluate if they're getting screwed over. The hope is that they're not going to be, but it's happened to the best of us, So I think, having a good solid foundation is going to be so important to an associate, and being able to communicate well with the owner doctor is also equally important.
Well, every year Dental Town has a special issue. So it's not 12 issues a year. It's actually 13 because we have a new grad issue. So that might be a great article for you to write about sometime, on the new grad issue that we send to all the juniors and seniors in all 56 dental schools, because what you're talking about is transparency. And, can you log on and see all the numbers? Are they transparent with all your numbers, or is your paycheck some mysterious, number on a check that you can't verify? Transparency is incredibly important in trust. That's great. So you own your own business now, so you're talking about new patients. It was one of your key performance indicators. What are you and your husband both doing for each your business for marketing? Is marketing the same in chiropractic? Is the same as dentistry? Is it the same types of event? Is marketing in healthcare? Or do you see you and your husband doing vastly different things?
I feel like we're doing vastly different things. Marketing is a passion of mine, and so I try to do a lot of the social media marketing for myself and for my husband. In chiropractic school, they teach them that there's a very small percentage of the population that go to a chiropractor in the first place.
What percent's that?
Oh gosh, it's like less than 10%.
Yeah.
So chiropractic schools are graduating chiropractors very frequently, 3 times a year. The local school is graduating new chiropractors. And so, one of the things that they teach them is to go out and try to search out people by going to like garden events, home shows, that kind of thing, renting booth space, and then just doing the kind of like the cold calls, kind of like I call it the dish TV tactic, because anytime you go to Sam's Club, you got the guy, hey, are you happy with your cable service? That's kind of the same thing where, a group of chiropractors will rent a booth and they'll just grab people, hey, can I offer you a free chair massage? At that point, they find out if they have any neck, back problems, and then they try to explain what they can do to help them. And it's really hard. That's a really hard way to grow your practice, in my opinion. Very awkward too. I've tried to be a stopper, and it's like, hey, would you like a chair massage? No, okay. It's just an awkward tactic. And so, we try to take a unique approach to marketing, and doing a lot of marketing that doesn't cost a lot. It takes a little bit of time, but once you get your marketing system in place, it just kind of runs like clockwork. And so, I've been using a lot of live streaming through Facebook to connect with our patient base and with people in the community. I use a lot of Facebook advertising and that sort of thing to help get the word out about our practice. I also use billboards in my local town. I've been on the news a few times. There's all kinds of things that you can do that break the bank. Kind of in our area, the direct mail postcards, it seems to be a lot of the corporate offices kind of have that market kind of on lock. So even at my house, I get 3 to 4 pieces of dental mail for different corporate dental offices per week. Then some of them are the really big ones, and I talk to people in the area and they just throw them away because they're inundated with these different postcards. So, being creative and thinking outside the box is very crucial, I think, when it comes to marketing.
So when you talk about Facebook live streaming, you're meaning that icon where, so when you go to post, there's a head with 2 line halos around it. So are you talking about you push that while you're in your dental office and then talk more about what you mean by Facebook live streaming.
So live streaming is pretty new to Facebook. They began doing it probably a couple months ago. And so I actually have a studio at home and a studio at my office. I'm actually in my home studio right now. This is one of the backdrops that I use with all the lighting. I've got one, two, three, four professional lights and audio tripods, that sort of thing. I have a similar setup at the office to where I a couple times a week will live stream on Facebook about different topics. And that is really a fun way to get your audience involved. I was talking about ways to save money at the dentist, and I was talking about dental sealants and fluoride during one of my live streams. And I had I think there were 20, 25 people in the room, and they were all asking me questions. With Facebook Live, you can interact with the speaker. So we had a great discussion about fluoride in the water, what the risks are, what the dangers are, that sort of thing for fluoride. And then also we had a conversation about amalgam. And so it was really neat to be able to interact with people in the community and get their questions answered in a very, very low stress way for them. And I got several new patients out of that live stream.
And how long are these?
It just depends on how I feel that day, how long-winded I am. If there is a lot of participation, I've live streamed for about 30 minutes before. So, it just kind of depends on the day. We're having an open house at my office later this week, and I got on there and live streamed for about 5 minutes, just talking about the event and what people can expect if they come out to the event. So it just depends.
And what that billboard? I'm a big fan of your posts on Dental Town. Have you ever posted a picture of that billboard?
I haven't yet, no.
We have 50 forums, and one of them is marketing. I can't remember last time I met a dentist that did billboard. If you ever get a chance, I wish you'd pop out your iPhone, take a picture of that billboard, and post it. But
Sure.
how close is it? Like on the main road, or is it at the a highway turn off to your office? Talk about your billboard.
I actually have two up right
Oh
now.
my God! So now you're the only dentist I've ever met in my life that owns two billboards. That is so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really good so far. I've got, being new to the area, I've been here for about 4 years now, I guess. No, 3 years. And just getting my name out there, it's really helped with that. It's kind of funny. I was at Lowe's a couple weeks ago, and I had a guy stop. He's like, "Hey." I was like, "Hey." He's like, "Where do I know you from?" I was like, "I don't know. Am I your dentist?" And he's like, "No, but I've seen your billboard." So I've had a couple fan interactions, I guess, which has been, really neat for, just brand recognition and that sort of thing. But they're both on one of our main artery interstates.
Now, how suburb are you or St. Louis? Are you a small town? Or are you in a city next to St. Louis where you wouldn't know you were leaving St. Louis and into your town? Or are you more out rural?
Yeah, we're more suburban.
Okay.
We're in the middle of a pretty fast growing area. We're about 45 minutes away from downtown St. Louis. So can I ask, well, what do these billboards cost? Or do you have to design the first one? Or talk about the cost of all that? Sure. It depends on the location of the billboard. You can spend anywhere from, I would say, about $1,000 to $3,000 a month, depending on the location. The first one I had was not the best location, but it kind of started to get the job done for us, and that's when people started recognizing us out in the community. And the second one that we just got is in a much better location, and I probably had 5 new patients so far this month directly from the new billboard.
That is amazing. Ted Turner was the founder of CNN. That was the really huge thing when I was in high school. I mean, it went from having to watch the news at 5 to 24 hours CNN. I think it's about 1980. But he made his start. He owned 1,100 billboards and parlayed that into CNN. So that was amazing. I want to switch gears. There's 9 sovereign specialties according to the American Dental Association, and and everybody always talks about endodontists, pedodontists, oral surgeons, prosthodontists, all that. But one of them is public health dentistry. That's one of the specialties, and it's the one that really doesn't get much talked about. You were in public health. What did you think of the public health specialty? What did you think of that time spent there? Talk about public health.
Sure. There were a couple different times, different assignments that I was on when I was locum tenens, where
What
I
does
was in
locum
public health.
tenens mean? I'm sorry, Ryan. I should have had you look that up on Wikipedia or what is locum tenens?
So that's basically working as a temporary dentist. So if a community health center or a small town was unable to find a dentist, I could go and work in that office for a certain amount of time. I was a contracted dentist. I've also worked in, public health type situations where they were looking for a long-term dentist but were unable to find one. So the company that I worked for would arrange with the business, and they would pay for my hotel, they would pay for my mileage, they'd pay me a daily rate, and I would just go and show up and do dentistry. And so I did that for quite some time. And that's basically what locum tenens is. That it's pretty popular in the medical field and also with nursing, where you can have temporary nurses go to different jobs and that sort of thing. It's not as well known in dentistry, but it's a great option if you have a no compete clause that you're kind of waiting out the time period, which is kind of what I was doing. I thought I wanted to go back home before I met the man of my dreams, and but also get really good experience. I worked in a lot of really rural areas in the state of Missouri where there was no dentist for 45 minutes. And so you got introduced to different materials and different people, and you learned to communicate with people from all walks of life. So it was a really great experience. And part of that experience was in the public health system. And so it's a very fast-paced environment. You have to think on your feet quite a bit. There were certain offices where I would be operating 5 chairs at the same time with, 5 procedures scheduled every hour. And so, it's a way to really work on your speed. And, like I said, kind of one place in particular was in very, very, very small town. And they worked off donations. And so dentists would donate equipment and that sort of thing. And so I remember the first time I was there, I asked for a certain instrument to shape a composite. And they're like, we don't have that. Do you want to use this or do you want to use this? And so I was like, well, let's try this. And so, you got to be exposed to all those different things where now that I'm a business owner, I don't have to have half a dozen different things to do one composite. I've got a couple instruments I like, and that's all I need. So I think that was a really good experience.
Does Missouri have hobby lobbies?
We do. We have lots of them.
That's where I get my favorite instruments from. I mean, because artists are just, they're so more evolved than dentists, and the little spatula, and they're real cheap too. But all my
Yeah.
all my favorite instruments for shaping composites and veneers and all that stuff is from Hobby Lobby.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
I just yeah, they're low cost. Like say, artists have been working with oil paints and all this stuff for centuries before there was cosmetic dentistry, and they just there's just a lot of little nuanced things where like sometimes I just buy instruments Hobby Lobby and I don't even know what it's going to do, but then when you're using it, you're like, oh, I get it. I see why that spatula
Right.
has a bend at the end or whatever. Yeah, I just went to
Uh-huh.
Merriam-Webster, locum tenens. One filling an office for a time or temporarily taking the place of another, used especially of a doctor or a clergyman. So are you a dentist or a clergyman or both?
Depends on the day, Howard.
Depends on the
No.
day. Um, so so you also have experience with contracting for military.
Yes, so I was able to contract with the Missouri National Guard and the Navy, and I participated in a lot of military readiness events. When I was working locum tenens, there would be periods of time where I was not on assignment, and so that was a good fill-in to be able to work on the weekends. A lot of the events are on the weekends to where before a troop would be deployed, they would have to get their hearing checked, height and weight, blood work, dental work done, that sort of thing. So I worked on a mobile unit where, if a filling was more than, or if a cavity was more than halfway to the pulp, then we had to fix it before they were deployable. And so I thought that was a really great way to help our servicemen and women without actually having to put the boots on.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's a an amazing deal. What do you make of corporate dentistry? So I got out in '87, and a lot of the biggest ones out there came decades after I was out, and I feel sorry for the term corporate dentistry because some of them are doing a great job, like Heartland and Pacific Dental, but a lot of their brand gets tarnished by a lot of these corporate chains that are not doing nearly as well. But what are your thoughts of corporate dentistry, and do you think what percent of the market do you think they'll take over when you're as old as me?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that second part of your question, but what I can tell you is, I think corporate dentistry is a great solution for some doctors. If you are needing to have the benefits that go along with corporate dentistry, or, if you need to have set schedule, then it's perfect for you. If you want to have the family time, if you want to have, different benefits paid for others, it might be very difficult. So if it's a strong-willed doctor who wants to do it exactly their way, and they want this and this, they want to do it their way, they don't want any questions asked, that sort of thing, it might not be the best choice because, for instance, Heartland systems are so nailed down, and it's a great, business model to have the systems that they have, that if you're one of those kind of trailblazing people that you want to do something that's outside of the systems that are proven to work, maybe doing your own thing would be a better option. But I think corporate dentistry is good for certain people. I think it's not good for other people. So I worked for a corporate dental office before I bought my own practice, and to me, and it wasn't, I won't say the name of the company, but nothing I did was enough. I couldn't ever produce enough. I couldn't ever do enough procedures. I couldn't work enough
At the
to meet
at
their.
the corporate office?
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
felt like they were just kept driving you to produce, produce, produce?
Hmm. And it comes a point where you have to evaluate the longevity of your career. I'm married to a chiropractor. My husband is constantly talking about, you know, ergonomics and exercising, and exercising your hands properly and not overdoing it. And it comes to a point where your expectations are so high that it's not good for your body. And so, at what point is too much, So I personally, I prefer having more control over my schedule and over how I practice dentistry.
When you
And
say they were pushing your production, do you think it was just
Mhm.
like let's say we're mowing lawns? Were they more pushing you to just push the lawnmower faster, or do you think they were trying to change your doctor treatment planning and diagnosing?
Probably a little of both. The company that I worked for was a much smaller corporate office, and we saw a lot of Medicaid. So, Medicaid is obviously lower reimbursing, that sort of thing. I produced the last month I was there, I did a 70,000 adjusted production. So that was once all the write-offs were taken from Medicaid, and it still wasn't enough. And I was running 5 chairs, 5 procedures at a time, and just running myself ragged. And it still wasn't enough. I was, now there's a kitten.
There's my little Mimi. She doesn't understand why I'm not paying attention to her and staring at my computer screen. I don't think. I always wonder if she looks at the computer, if she would realize there's a human on there, or if she just doesn't smell it. I don't know if she's smell driven or whatever. Um, yeah, the California, I thought that was so crazy. So they had this big state government meeting because they couldn't figure out why all the dentists didn't take California's Denical and everything, and they're like, okay, so here's the fees they take, and they run a 65% overhead, and your fees wouldn't even cover half their overhead. So you really think, and that's when
Mhm.
people say that healthcare should be free. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that the government's going to come kick in my door and drag me to work and make me perform root canals all day without compensation? Were they there to put me through dental school? Were they there to pay out my student loans? Are they buying all this equipment from Dentsply Sirona? I mean, what does free healthcare mean? I mean, do they have finally the great state of California realized that maybe they should raise the fee schedule on their payments. I mean,
Mm.
but to do 70,000 adjusted production on a Medicaid fee schedule, I mean, holy moly, you're
Mhm.
that you were doing the work of two dentists,
Mhm. Right.
and it still wasn't enough.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. I think when people talk about free healthcare, I think they need to have a serious talk to themselves. Is what exactly is free? You know, can I go to my
Mhm.
neighbor and say, "Hey, I've decided to vote for free yard care, and you're my neighbor, so you're going to come over and take care of my yard for free? Isn't it a great society? We live in a great world." And so what other so what are you thinking about this? I want to ask you this. So this is a question I get all the time from young dentists. They come out of school and they say, "Okay, dental school teaches your basics." And they always get a complaint about that they don't teach them this and this. And I'm like, dude, have you ever been in dental school? To take 100 kids from zero to you have a license to do root canals in 4 years, that's a feat.
It's
And then
quite a
and then
feat.
you're saying, well, why didn't they learn this and this and that? You can only teach so much. But so they're sitting here at a fork in the road. They got their student loan payments. They only have so much time and they're being teased to learn about CAD CAM, surgically placed implants, CBCTs, sleep medicine, Invisalign, all that. What guidance could you give them of, because you can't learn all that stuff at once. You'd be taking, you go bankrupt and there's not enough weekends in the year. What are the stairs up this stairway? I mean, are you in your own office? Are you mostly bread and butter? A hygiene department, fillings and crowns? Or are you doing endo? Talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, in my practice, we are a technology-driven practice, and we have CAD CAM, we have cone beam. I'm not placing implants yet, but I do have a periodontist that works for me who places the implants for me, and so I've taken the Invisalign course. There's so many different things that you can do that it is very easy to get bogged down with, okay, I should do this, I should do this, just like you were saying, I should learn this, I should learn this. There's the expression, jack of all trades, master of none. So I think it's important to kind of pick one thing at a time to really concentrate on. The first year I owned my practice, we got the CAD CAM technology, and so for that whole year I was taking CE just on that.
What brand did you get? Did you get Plan Mecca's E4D or did you get Dentsply Sirona's Cerac?
I have a CEREC with the OmniCam.
And how long have you had that?
It's been about a year and a half.
And are you glad? Are you glad you made that investment in time and money?
I really am. I have a love-hate relationship with my CEREC. I love it when it works, and I hate it when it doesn't. And so, whenever it has to have maintenance or something, there's nothing that's perfect, especially when it comes to technology. And so, there's probably once every 8 weeks or so that, we have to have CEREC maintenance done on the milling unit or something. And so I hate it then, but, it really has transformed the way that I do dentistry. It's transformed, to be able to take my tiny little preps and blow them up on a big screen.
Right.
I feel like I became a much better practitioner in half the time just because I could see it and see it outside of the mouth and say, okay, I could do this margin better. I need to touch this spot, all those things. So yes, it was an investment, but man, it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, the fastest, easiest way to increase the quality of your dentistry is magnification. Start with the naked eye, go to loops. When you orally scan your impression and you see it 40 times bigger. I've never looked at one of my preps ever and not had to go back and touch something up, smooth it out, whatever. And then endodontists, they all tell you they get a microscope, and just when they're all ready to fill, to drop a microscope down and look at that thing 15 times bigger, they just almost always find, oh my God, there's still a bunch of crud in that one canal, or I missed a canal. So magnification's easy.
Sure.
Yeah, a good thing. So I want to ask, I want to challenge your mind on this. So when we take a return on asset, let's say I invest $1 in an asset and it does $1 in sale, and say when I do $1 in sale, I make a dime, so I have a 10% profit margin. But to make that sale, I had to buy an asset for $1. If it did $1 in sale, then my 10% profit margin would also be a 10% return on asset. But so to go out, and you said you haven't placed implants yet, but you do have a CBCT already. But in order to place implants, to me, it seems like people are spending well over 100 grand. They got to buy a CBCT. They might have to go to Jamaica or Dominican Republic with somebody to learn how to place it. Then they got to buy an implant system. They got to buy implant, and they might have 100. Some of them have 200 grand before they make their first dollar. and they can't have a return
Mhm.
on asset, so they get 200 grand back. Versus, I have a periodontist come in, I haven't
Mhm.
invested a dollar. He comes in, does a
Mhm.
dollar. I give him a percent of it. Say you give him half. So now I'm making 50 cents off an existing asset. I'm just raising my return on asset and I didn't have to shell out any money. So how are you going to make that decision between saying, I just want a higher return on asset without any more and employing any more capital into this asset versus I just want to learn how to do it myself. How are you going to work through that decision?
Well, I'm kind of a do see one, watch one, do one, teach one method. And so I'm not at a point in my continuing education calendar, if you will, where I'm ready to invest in learning to place the implants myself. I'm still working on, perfecting my CAD CAM dentistry. And, in a few years, yeah, maybe I'm going to be ready to make that investment into myself to where I can place it. I have a desire to do so. It's just a matter of, choosing the right time. When's the right time to spend that money to be trained, that sort of thing. And so by having the periodontist come in and do the surgery in my office, I can observe. I can observe him placing implants. He's already very good at it. I can ask questions, that sort of thing, to where he's making money off of the procedure. I'm making money off the procedure. I'm paying for the equipment, the CBCT, that sort of thing. But I'm also getting that education, which is, going to put me ahead once I am ready to take the leap and to do it myself.
Nice. Now, how does that work with your periodontist? Do you buy the implant, or does his percent include, bone grafting and the implant and all? How does the details of that actually work?
So basically, I pay him a percentage of whatever he collects, and then the rest will go to paying for the overhead, that sort of thing. We
But who buys the actual implant or the bone grafting material or all the sundries with the implant?
My practice does.
Your practice is that,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
feel you're making money off the deal?
We've had him here for about a month, and so I so far so good.
Good. I always remind everybody,
Yeah.
no deal is always better than a bad deal. And
Mm.
if I see so many dentists that have an overhead of 65% paying their associate 35%. I'm like, well, this is just noise. If you're not going to make money off the deal, don't do the deal. No deal is
Right.
better than a bad deal. And if you're not going to make money off the deal, go do something else. But
Mhm.
my deal is it's torn because you have your business hat on where you want to build a nice profitable business, but then you only live once. And I always
Mhm.
say, if your passion is to place implants, even though it's not a good business idea, you might want to just do that because I love blood and guts the most. Kids the least, blood and guts the most. I couldn't imagine being a bloodless dentist. You know what I mean? I mean, pulling a wisdom teeth, placing an implant, laying a flap. That's. I always thought that was the most fun. So what's keeping you up now? Now you've owned your office how long?
For just over 2 years.
2 years. So what's the most stressful part now? What's keeping you up at night? Is it staff? Is it people? Is it continuing education? Is it insurance? What keeps you up at night?
Well, staff is going very well. So that used to be an issue. I had a lot of turnover. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Um, in the beginning, I had this is a fun story. I like to tell this one. It's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. But my second week of owning a practice, the office manager that had been there for 14 years was arrested from my office. Uh, so that was a wild adventure.
Arrested for
Uh,
what?
well, I think it was for domestic assault. But then come to find out she'd been embezzling from me in 2 weeks. So the first person that I ever got to fire was the office manager who had been with the practice for 14
And how
years.
long you think she'd been embezzling?
Oh, she was a professional. Yeah, she'd
All
been doing
my
it
dental
a
consultant
long time.
friends, every single one of them says 50% of the offices that they go consult in, the first thing they find, and half of them is there's an embezzler going on.
Uh-huh. I tell you
How
that
did
was
how did you catch her? And
well, whenever she was arrested, I terminated her the next day, and it was very difficult because not only was I 2 weeks into a new business. It was a very busy office. I was trying to get the patients to like me and to stay, but now I had to do all the front office stuff as well. And so it was an adventure, because then I really dove in deep into a lot of different reports that I just didn't know to run when I was doing my due diligence, purchasing the practice. And none of my, advisement counsel, my CPA, my lawyer, no one told me to run these kind of reports. But I became a master at knowing how to catch an embezzler, because she was doing it in several different ways.
Can you go over those?
Oh, the ways to prevent embezzlement?
What she was actually doing, and ways to prevent it? Because if it's
Sure.
happening to and here's another thing. So who are these offices saying, I need a consultant? And probably people saying, I'm working a lot and I'm not having any extra money. My overhead's really, really high. Well, one explanation for that in half the offices that end up picking up a phone and calling a consultant is someone stealing the money. So
Mhm.
so how was she doing it, and what would you tell your homies listening to this to look for?
Yeah, I mean, if you're living through a situation like Howard just described, then that's definitely a red flag. And a lot of times, the people that work with us are very, very close to us, and there's sometimes a line that becomes blurred between employee and friend, because we spend so much time together at the office. And so, the number one thing that dentists need to know is you have to know how to do everything. You have to know your business. You can't take Becky's word for it that today we collected no cash and this is all we collected today. You can't take Becky's word for it that, this return on the credit card machine is legitimate. You've got to know everything that goes on in your practice. You have got to audit your front staff, and even if they've been with you forever and you've been to their kids' graduations and that sort of thing, it's so important to know your business. This is not a hobby that we do. This is our livelihood. And so, cash was being entered into EagleSoft. She would pocket the money and she would write it up, fabricate a receipt. And then there's ways in EagleSoft to adjust things that if you don't know to run a specific report, it doesn't show up in the ledger. It becomes hidden in the ledger. There are things that can be done with your credit card terminal. So if you allow refunds on credit cards, they can return it to their credit card. So if it's $150 refund to Mrs. Jones, they take their credit card, swipe it, do the refund, and now they've got $150 back on their credit card. So there's lots of things that can be done to prevent that. For instance, we don't allow credit card refunds in my office. If there's a refund that has to be given, I write a check, because that's such an easy way to lose out on money. Because you're in the back, you're doing dentistry, you're not babysitting your front desk staff. And so it's amazing how quickly money can just walk off.
That is a interesting deal. I always think it's again, a lot of people misquote me that I'm like anti-technology or anti-laser or something like that when I have every single toy known to man. But I tell people that you need to get your business in order first. And so what you're describing is they're off to fly clear across the country to learn about TMJ, sleep medicine, sleep apnea, and they don't even know that their house is not in order, and they're getting embezzled from every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard. And then if I ask any of my dentist friends, if you had to describe yourself, what are you? They'll usually say, well, I'm a dentist. And it's like, no, you're a businessman. You're a
Right.
businessman, and your product could be dentistry or donuts. You're a businessman. And all you
Right.
ever talk about is how to make donuts and your next donut making course you're going off to. And you can't tell me any of your key performance indicators of your business. And then you wonder why you're swallowing the Listerine instead of spitting it out in between patients, because your gut's telling you something wrong. And that's another thing I would tell young kids is that the one thing you learn when you're in your 50s is that when you were little, you had this little birdie talking to you. You had this intuition, this gut. You need to listen more to your gut, your intuition. If you think you're being embezzled from. There's probably 100 good reasons why you're thinking that, and you need to follow your intuition. If you're
Hmm.
listening to this and you're even thinking about it, in fact, the one thing I just thought is, gosh, I think it should be, um, every practice broker before they list the office should do an embezzlement report. That's an article you should write. You should write an article for Dental Town saying, you know what, never buy a practice unless they have a person who specializes in embezzlement and fraud come and do an audit check, so that if you're buying an office and they're saying it's collecting this much, that you know how much of that is being collected, how much that's being embezzled, and that's a that I think you should, if you ever have the time, you should write that. I think that would be a great deal, and I would feel much better off seeing somebody buying a dental office. No, first of all, because you're buying that existing office, and you don't want a lot of staff turnover because that's part of the brand. You're already going to be switching out the doctor. You don't want to switch
Right.
out the hygienist, the office manager, the front desk. You don't want massive chaos, but you don't want to buy an office and keep an office manager if she's been stealing the last 20 years.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of due diligence that I did. The practice broker that I used has been brokering practices for 20, 30 years. And he's like, nobody has ever done as much due diligence as you've done. That was my full-time job, was doing, investigations and that sort of thing. Of course, I didn't know, how all the different reports to run, like I said. And so it was really a shock to the broker that this had been going on, especially with all of their, he was a CPA with all the reports that he had run. So, there's a couple key things that can be done when you're evaluating a practice for purchase. And I've helped several other doctors, in the last couple of years, evaluate practices, and I tell them what reports to run, and gosh, there's just so many different ways that, people can screw you over, unfortunately, and not everybody's an honest person. And so, you just gotta, you know, remember that it's a business first.
Well, I like that. I mean, that was a golden jewel because you're giving specific. You're saying, in fact, I'm typing notes right now, to not allow credit card refunds. And then if you need a credit card
Mhm.
refund, they should have to cut a check or a different paper trail because this is
Mhm.
a hot deal. And you're not the first person who has mentioned that to me in the last year, that this is a new prime area. Because
Mhm.
like when I got out of school, that was a brand new thing, but now this is a hot area of fraud.
Mhm. Yeah, criminals are very creative, and so unfortunately, sometimes you have to think like a criminal to protect yourself.
Yeah. So what other advice would you like to part to these dentists? I only got you for 2 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I would just um, if you're a new graduating dentist, I would say take a good hard look at yourself, and just look at your life and see what you think it's going to take to make you happy in life. I've created kind of a 4 or 5 question quiz that is geared towards helping students decide where their calling is. Is it public health? Is it associateship? Is it corporate dentistry? Is it working for the military? Is it working locum tenens? That sort of thing. And it's okay to try different things, different practice situations, and it's okay to get fired. I've been fired once, and it sucked at the time, but it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened, because I bought my practice after that, and now I'm a business owner, and I'm as happy as I can be because that was my calling. And so if your first job doesn't work out, most people's first job doesn't work out. You're probably not going to be at your first job for the rest of your career unless you buy your practice.
Oh my God, you're cracking me up. I just remembered that the time I got fired. I was in high school and I was working for my dad at Sonics, but I wanted to go get a job at this TG&Y. I thought that would be fun.
Sure.
Do you remember TG&Y?
Yeah.
Yeah, TG&Y. And so first day of the job, the other guys are in the back storage room because that was back when a lot of the inventory is in the back. Now all the stores, the inventory is all on the shelves. And the other three
Hmm.
guys say, "Hey, Eddie's coming back. When he comes through the door, let's all jump him and give him a red bill. It'll be hilarious." And I'm laughing like, "Okay, you want to be one of the guys?" So he walks through the door. Guess who's the only idiot who jumps him?
It was you.
And then he goes crying to the manager. The manager came back to me. "Did you jump him when he came through the door?" And I'm like, you're fired. Get out of here. And I go home. My dad said, you fell for that? But crazy, crazy, crazy. But hey, last question I got to ask you is you went to UMKC, so you should be a professional Kansas City Royals fan. Now you moved to the evil city of St. Louis Cardinals fan. So which are you still loyal to the Royals like you should be, or did you switch to the other side and are you now a Cardinals fan?
Well, I can tell you, I grew up on the southeast part of the state,
Oh my God, she's drinking a cup with the Cardinals.
and so
That was the best comeback I've ever had. She tipped the Cardinals coffee mug right when I asked the question. But that was the Royals had a good season though last year, didn't they?
they did. We were proud of them. I tell you, we wanted to see a repeat of 1985, but maybe this year it'll happen.
Yeah, and I just went to a baseball game the other night. We got the Diamondbacks here, and even if
Hmm.
a lot of people say, I'm not into baseball. Even if you're not into baseball, there's nothing more cool than those
Oh,
baseball stadiums. I mean, if you're just a people watcher, the beauty, the green, the game. The
oh,
only
it's
thing I don't like about going to a live game is if you get good tickets, you're sitting there worried that you're going to get hit in the head by a 100-mile-an-hour baseball and lose
yeah.
half your smarts. And so I actually like the worst tickets at a baseball game. I want to be sitting somewhere where there's no chance I'm going to get clocked by a baseball. But hey, thank you so much for coming on my show. I think you're amazing. Last question. I got one question because my job is to guess what people are thinking. There's probably a
Okay.
lot of young dentists thinking, okay, well, if you own your own business and you're 30 and your husband owns his own business and you're 30,
Hmm.
can I ask a personal question? If this is too personal, I'll edit it out. Are you guys going to plan a family and what are your thoughts there? Because my generation of baby boomers, 27% had no kids. So 1/4 of all my employees didn't have kids. So what does that picture look like to you now?
Well, I think that it's something that we're definitely open to. The business has come first for the last couple of years, and like just like I was saying, it was kind of turmoil there for the first few months of owning the business, and so there was absolutely no chance of that. But I'm currently looking for an associate to come in and help take some of the load off of my hands because we're just swamped, and I'm so thankful that we're swamped. But there could be some family in the future.
Well,
Um,
as someone who raised 4 kids, I can tell you factually they're about a third of $1 million each. So
oh
you already
man.
got a cat and 2 dogs. I'm saying Ryan, cover your ears. I don't want my son hearing this. The cats and dogs are definitely cheaper, but I'm just kidding. But hey, again, thank you so much for an hour of your time. You're amazing, and I'm dying to see that billboard. You got 2 of them. I hope you go into marketing on Dentaltown and post a couple pictures of those billboards.
I
In
will.
fact,
I'll definitely do
if you
that.
go to the dental town, there's that search bar billboards. There was a thread from 3 or 4 years ago about people saying, "What's the deal on billboards? Is this a thing?" Because it's
Hmm.
a very rare thing. And like I say, you're the only one I've ever met in my life that owned 2.
Oh wow, cool.
So shoot some pictures and do a search for that billboard and reactivate that thread because that's because there and I have a selfish reason for thinking about that because I'm at the corner of 48th and Elliott in Phoenix and there's a
Hmm.
billboard. They just built a new billboard about 2 blocks down right by the interstate exit. And I've
Oh,
told
you
my
gotta get
staff
it.
about that and they're all looking at it. And while we were all looking at it and talking about it, a Giro's Greek food restaurant bought it but they won't
Oh,
hold it forever, or we could call and put on the wait list. But I'd like to revisit that just for me, selfishly, personally. All
yeah. Well, it's been good for me so far. So
right, Cindy, thank
definitely
you
look
so
into it.
much for spending an hour with me today.
Thank you,
All right,
Howard.
bye bye.
Bye.